Hey, welcome to Lab, the podcast. So grateful to get some time with someone who I deeply respect and I'm grateful for in our city, Lurlene Diaz. She's the executive director of Created, and Lurlene has been dedicated as a faith leader in faith-based nonprofit organizations for over 40 years, driven by her deep love of God and unwavering commitment to serve those in need. She's an ordained minister, a seminary graduate with a degree in spiritual life and formation. Her ministry has taken her into underserved communities both across the United States and internationally, always with a heart of bringing hope and healing where it's needed most. Her personal connection to the fight against human trafficking began 28 years ago when her family became guardians of a child who had been trafficked by her own parents. That experience ignited a lifelong prayer for support and services for women impacted by this devastating reality. As I said, Lurlene serves as Created and believes that's a very answer to prayer, leading a team that walks daily with survivors on their journey toward healing and restoration. Lurlene, thank you for
Absolutely.
making
Thank
time.
you.
I'm honored to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, we were at a mutual event with 100
Mhm.
Shares, a
Yeah.
great grant organization. So again, thank you 100 Shares for all your work. But we were at the event where you were awarded a pretty significant grant for Created, which blew all of our minds when we heard the story of how your team was praying. So I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Created and the work you all are doing. But I also just want to get to know you. I said that I respect you and am grateful that you're in our city because we care about this fight against human trafficking. Our lab initiative has been able to help Created and been a part of that, working with Buddy Brood to try to create sustainable funding
Yeah.
for the critical work you're doing. And funding sometimes feels like the hardest thing to accomplish,
Yeah.
but it's not really. It's the right people called and equipped and brought to these places that are really difficult. That's sometimes the thing that I think is most difficult. So that's what I mean when I say I'm so grateful that you're in our city doing
Thank you.
really, really important work. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Let's talk a little bit about that story. I was struck in your
Yeah.
bio. We talked to so many different people, and people say this kind of the same thing in a bunch of different ways. They'll say, I'm a person of deep religious conviction, or I have a deep personal faith. We have all the ways of saying what we're probably trying to all get at. But you use the words that you're driven by a deep love for God, and that's really the fire inside you. And I was struck by that. What is it about the love of God? Like where for you, where does that come from and why were those words the words you chose to share first?
Wow. I think love is such a big word. And I think it's often not used appropriately. We use it, I love ice cream, that kind of thing. And at a very young age, I understood that God loved me. And I also understood that there were a lot of people in the world that didn't know that
Mm,
or felt that they were not experiencing that. As a child, my parents were pastors and in a very poor community in a church that primarily served the poor. And I remember, getting up in the middle of the night and kids were brought by the police because they had no place to go. And in the morning, they would wear one of my 3 or 4 outfits that I had to school because they didn't have any. And just seeing the loneliness and something raised up in me as a child that I was called to do something about
mm,
that. And the answer to that is love. And it's the love of God. I don't have the ability to love that way, but God does.
yeah.
And so, yeah, it started at a really young age. I always remember it, so I can't remember a time without it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that from like when you get into a child's story or even our stories
Yeah.
and you go back there, there's so many tough things that happen in
Yeah.
childhood. And we'll get into those from stories I'm sure you hear over and over at Created that
Absolutely.
early on those traumas start to impact later in life. And God is there too. And when
Absolutely.
a child is able to be aware of that, that's a special gift for someone to look back and say, even as a kid, I knew that God loved me
Yeah.
deeply. Your parents helped to shape your care and compassion for people.
Mhm.
And that was an early age being
Yeah.
kind of woven into the nurture side of your story. When did you know? Because you went on 40 years of service
Right.
in this, and particularly the Salvation Army was a huge part of that story. When did you know that God was calling you to, in your words, like do something about this?
Yeah. So, like many young people, I had a couple years, especially in high school, where I was kind of over being part of the ministry of my parents. I started teaching Sunday school out of need when I was 11. And I just reached a point that I felt that my parents were so involved in the church that I was angry with them for it,
Mm,
which is all interesting, right? Based on what
sure.
I just said prior. And so I had some time where I was just like, yeah, I just don't want to be part of this. I want to do something else. By God's grace, my parents had some assistant pastors and they took me under their wing. And I actually ended up moving in with them. And they just taught me more about the love of God. They taught me about the Holy Spirit. And they just said, God has a calling on your life. I already knew that, even though wasn't sure I wanted to do anything about that. But they just kept praying over me. I stayed with them for a long time. I went to college. There's an amazing story in all of that. Uh, and while I was in college, I during my second year of college, I knew the direction I was going. I was pre med. That was not what I really wanted to do, but I thought for a long time it's what I wanted to do. So my guidance counselor said, "So what do you really want to be?"
Mm,
And I'm like, I want to be a pastor." And she goes, "What?" Because I'm in a pre med,
yeah, sure.
whatever. And so on the way home, I said to this pastor friend, I said, "You won't believe what happened today." And he goes, "You were called."
Mm,
And I just started to cry. And he said, "I've known it this whole time." And I'm like, they were with me in my wild days, like not wild, like I didn't do anything really crazy, but I was very rebellious.
yeah.
And he said, "We were just waiting for you to discover that."
Mm,
And then throughout my life, my favorite scripture is Exodus in chapter 3, right after Moses is, talking to God with a burning bush. And God says multiple times in that scripture, "I see the suffering of my people. I hear their cries,
mm,
and I'm coming down to deal with this.
mm,
Moses, I'm sending you."
yeah.
And I understood very clearly that God says you need to be part of the answer to
Yep.
these things that are happening in the world. Just like somebody stepped up to the plate for you, you need to step up to the plate when you can. And so, yeah, it's just this constant reinforcement that God has done over the years.
Yeah. It's so cool, even like pre med,
Yeah,
the care for persons. I think we're learning so much as we kind of
yeah,
jettison humanism and secular humanism and the idea that it's just a material world, which drove one way of thinking about medicine,
yeah,
psychology, all of those, the healing arts. We would say, like, oh, this is the way that healing comes. I think we're much closer to a reality based model
yeah,
that says you're biopsychosocial spiritual. And so
correct,
if you think about the care for persons, your calling was there pre med. You're going to care for people.
correct.
You're going to attend to their soul, to these parts of them that are being maybe not attended to in this
Right,
continuum of care. So I think that it's so cool to see how God
right.
knows more. He's like, I see the whole thing. You're getting a
Yeah,
glimpse of this, and we're formed. I think we share the rebellious side. I think I remember a
yeah,
pastor who was a friend of my parents pulling me aside as a teenager, and I was being a little bit of a pest, and he said, "You, God's given you gifts, but you will be of no use to God until you deal with your rebellion." And he said that in my driveway, and I was like, what is
yeah,
this? Like, come on. The
yeah,
wounds of a friend, right? Sometimes like somebody will provoke those things.
yeah,
And it sounds like God gave you this season to make sense of your life of faith with your parents, and it becomes
yeah.
your own, and you
Absolutely.
discern calling and start to head in this direction. And then 40 years in the wilderness or with a father in law somewhere else, you start serving in a particular way,
Yeah.
care for people, but it was broad. It was in the Salvation Army. So just talk about the work you did in that season, because it wasn't as specific to human trafficking, although that was in
Right.
there. What was the work you were doing broadly there for so many
Yeah.
of those years?
Because of my experience as a youth, I'm very comfortable with the underserved. I'm far more comfortable with a person who is unhoused than sitting around a board table with somebody. And so, um, what I appreciate about the Salvation Army is that they serve people that other people don't want to deal with, and
Mm,
that's been in their history for a long time. There's a lot
yep,
of organizations today, but in the beginning there was not.
sure.
And so I've always just been drawn to that. I'm very comfortable in that area. And so in the Salvation Army, I was a pastor. I went to their seminary. But their seminary also teaches you how to do social services. So all of the places that I served had food pantries. As I moved on in my career with the Salvation Army, we had learning centers and community centers and all those other things, shelters. And so just you're pretty well rounded because you have a lot of different experiences. Sorry, I really appreciate that, though. I think it's all necessary. And so just really grateful for all of that. Grateful that I was exposed to a lot of things during those years. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. Even the Salvation Army, you think about the holidays. Everybody
Yeah. Yeah.
associates the bell ringing and
Yeah.
Salvation
Yeah.
Army, and they do good things. We don't know
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
they do. We don't know how
Right.
they do
Right.
it, but they
Right.
do good things. And if you're in ministry or you're in an urban context, often you'll see a Army center and you'll say, okay,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get a
Yeah.
little bit closer
Yeah.
picture of what
Yeah.
you're doing. But it's caring for people in really vulnerable situations, a lot of brokenness, a lot of complexity, and in a culture that doesn't know what to do with people
Yeah.
who are facing all of these converging things,
Yeah.
and they show up at the Salvation Army. So you're getting formed, shaped, trained,
Right.
and inside that is this particular thread of caring for people who have been hurt, harmed, trafficked,
Hmm.
experienced trauma in this particular place. If you go back in your story, where can you start to say, like, yeah, God started to show me that it wouldn't just be caring for people,
Yeah.
but that there would be people within that group of people who need care, that there's a particular hurt and vulnerability, and you're going to be called there. If you look back
Yeah.
now, can you see early evidence that God was already preparing you for what you're doing at Created?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the turning point for me was my daughter Mimi. So we were serving in a small town outside of New York City, and I was tutoring a young lady. She was around 13, 14 at the time, and she came to all of our youth activities. So I had known her already for a couple years. And she said to me one weekend, "Hey, can I come to your house?" Well, we often had the kids at our house, the teenagers and stuff from the church at the house. So I said, "Sure." So after the weekend, we noticed odd things. Like she's sitting on the bed and she's like rubbing the bed, like, "This is beautiful." And we sat down at the dinner table. She didn't really know what to do at the dinner table. And she said, "Do you guys always eat together?" It's that kind of conversation. So we went to take her home and she just had a panic attack when it was time to get out of the car. And I said, she goes, "Please, just take me home with you." And I'm like, "You have to give me reasons." And she said, "Well, I didn't have to work." And I'm like, "Well, where do you work?" So she's telling me about this little hotel, which is a real nasty place in our town. And I said, "Well, what do you do there?" Thinking maybe she washes dishes. And she says, "I see men." Well, now I'm angry. But I also am struggling to comprehend this. And so I'm like, "Well, who arranges this?" Well, my parents do. And so we put her back in the car. I call a judge that's on our advisory board, and I said, "I have a situation." Well, first I called CPS, and they're like, "Yeah, we know." I'm like, "What do you mean you know?"
Yep.
And they said, "Well, in our town, we don't have any services. We have no residential facilities for teens except for juvenile detention. She won't survive. Her case had already been reported by other people, and so they just left her there." So I'm like, "Well, what do you want me to do?" And they said, "You can keep her, or you can send her home." Well, we knew we weren't going to send her home.
Hmm.
So we called a judge on our board. The next day, he gave us guardianship, like literally the next day. Well, then we had this child in our house who is traumatized. But on top of that, she had things like if I don't go home, my family's going to be homeless or they're not going to eat because she was the main breadwinner. And the guilt and responsibility she felt because when she didn't want to work, it would be like, then we're not going to eat. And so we dealt with that. We dealt with the fact she was 4 years behind in school. And what became very real to us is we couldn't find a doctor who knew how to treat her or how to examine her to see what the damage was. We couldn't find a therapist who knew how to deal with that level of trauma. So I have this child who has having nightmares all night and all these other strange behaviors and now really misbehaving when we only knew her to be a very compliant child. And we have no idea what to do. And there's nobody to give us guidance. And there was just something in my spirit that went, this is not okay. And you need to figure out what needs to happen in this situation. So we just sought as much help as we could. We fumbled our way through it. Thank God she's an amazing young lady today. Um, but it put me on this mission of we need to do better,
Mm.
but also understanding that it was far more prevalent than I thought it was. And that was scary to me. But I also, it was far more scary that we didn't have resources of what we were going to do about this. So I just started to read a lot more, learn a lot more, take classes on how to help people who had been traumatized. And then, thank God, a few years later, a coalition started to rise up. I joined them when I was in Cleveland. We built a family shelter and we were able to add a wing specific for human trafficking. So I just started to work my way up to Created. And so when we retired from the Salvation Army and we came to Florida, I saw this position and I went, this is what I prayed for all these years. It's
Yeah.
also what I prepared for all
Yeah.
these years. So
Yeah.
yeah, just a tremendous answer to prayer.
Yeah. It's extraordinary to think about that. And everybody has whatever vocation you're in, you can look back on your story and kind of
Yeah.
make sense of it in the same way.
Yeah.
But for 40 years,
Mhm.
you were serving people,
Yeah.
and God was just putting together the pieces from development director to the way you work with the legal system to how do you do things
Yeah.
with best practices to how do you care for people in a context where there are services to care for people. All of that is, you think you're doing the work and you are
Yeah.
in the moment. And yet 40 years later, you go, oh,
Yeah.
that's why I
Yeah.
needed all
Yeah.
these different pieces for that.
Yeah.
And the need is tremendous. I think I want to pause really quick and just say, as you hear conversations like this, I'm aware that probably so many of us listening to this conversation are going, yeah, there's parts of that story that are resonating
Yeah.
really close to
I'm
home
sure.
in whether it's their story or somebody they know.
Yeah.
And I think part of what we hope to do is just say these are tough conversations and we need to keep having them because I think we're still learning, much like you
Yeah.
were discovering there are no services, there are no homes. And we go,
Yeah.
how can that be?
Yeah.
And from your thinking about Moses' story, it's because God says, I do care, I do see,
Absolutely.
and I'm going to
Yeah.
work through people. And so there's a big education happening through conversations like this to say the
Mhm.
need is great.
Yeah.
We don't need to be ashamed or afraid to have these conversations. They're real and those traumas are really significant and
Yeah.
we need to honor that
Yeah.
by thinking well about it. And there's a lot of work to do.
Mhm.
So you found yourself at Created, and there
Yeah.
was a posting for a job,
Yeah.
executive director for Created. Talk a little bit about the organization and the work you're doing, what you stepped into. What is the mission of Created? What are you trying to do in this huge space with all of these underserved, this huge underserved area? What's Created's particular part, and what are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah. So, Created as a Christian organization. We are a therapeutic residential recovery center for survivors of human trafficking. So it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
All of it's important because we're not a housing program. We are actually a recovery center. It's where people come in right off the street, right out of jail, wherever they're coming from on their journey to Created. And during their time at Created, they are developing the tools, they're getting the healing that they need in order to live independent. So it's a place that people are getting their life back. All the women that we serve have dual diagnosis, so they have complex trauma. So we're dealing with the mental health issues, but most of them, like 99% of them, also have addiction. Addiction goes hand in hand with trafficking. And so, our goal is to help them overcome both of those. Sometimes we need to send them inpatient before they come back to Created to stabilize them. But what we're really seeing is that healing is possible. And I just want to keep saying that over and over. I know there's people watching that have been sexually abused. You have struggled for years to find the right help, or you're getting help and it doesn't seem to be enough.
Mm.
What we're finding is you have to handle every component of it. So, what we tell the women is a lot of them have been to drug treatment before, but their trauma has not been dealt with.
It's
So the
underneath
one
it.
you don't deal with is going to take you down. But it's same with our bodies and our minds, your body, mind, and spirit. So if we work on the body and the mind and not the spirit, you still are not touching the entire being of the person. But when somebody has been impacted by trauma at the level of human trafficking or sexual abuse, it impacts every core of your being. It literally shatters your identity. The ladies talk about the unseen scarlet letter, that they just feel that everybody looks at them and says, "Oh, we know what happened to you," or "You're always going to be a prostitute," or whatever the case may be. Only God can restore that because He's our creator. He's the one who gave us our identity. And so we need to find that identity again, but we can only do that with Christ. So if we're not adding Christ to that healing component, then the other things are important and they will help them, but they truly will not be healed. And so we don't compromise on that. We really make sure that that is in every element of what we do. First thing in the morning, the ladies have morning prayers and devotions. Our curriculum is faith-based. The churches come in and do Bible study. So it's just really in everything that we do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's honor and respect. It just keeps hitting like you all
mhm,
and your team and the people who are funding and partnering to make this
absolutely.
possible have our highest admiration. I think
Thank
that
you.
it's again the shift from modernity to what's beyond now modernity
Yeah.
as we jettison that secular humanist philosophy. It used to be that you'd get beat up on if you're a faith-based
Yeah,
recovery centers. It was like, well,
yeah,
you all on the faith side are trying to be helpful and nice, but we're the experts. We know how to do
yeah,
this. And I think that's you talked about it, the one you don't deal with.
yeah,
If you don't incorporate the soul, if God is not at the center, then healing at the level that we need healing, it's just not possible. Not because
absolutely.
we're beating up on anybody, because of reality. Like God
Yeah,
exists and we're made by him and for him, and he
yeah,
understands who he made us to be.
yeah,
You can't get to healing if you don't have the conversations that are happening at Created. That's
right.
why I say if there is a model, right, that we can celebrate, we can say, I think
Yeah,
you all are onto it. Because you said you also staff licensed professionals. So
correct,
it's a
correct.
recognition that yes, there is best practice and
Yes,
expertise. How are you integrating that side of it? You have Christ at
yeah,
the center and a model that incorporates the spiritual foundation
yeah,
to healing and says, let's get the
yeah.
best people.
Yes, first I just want to talk about Jesus' ministry on earth. When he came, he preached the gospel. He wanted us to know who he was, who God is. But a good portion of the gospels is about his healing ministry, laying hands on people. So it's a big part. I think that in the church, we do a lot of good acts, we do a lot of good deeds, and I think it might be beneficial if we focus a lot more on the healing. Sometimes we struggle sitting with people who are suffering, coming alongside people who are suffering. We struggle to. It impacts us in some way, right? And we have to get comfortable with sitting with the person that is suffering, so that we can be the hands and feet of Christ. If we're not willing to sit with them in the suffering, right, we can't really do the other ministry. So the people that work at Created, they're professionals. They have their degrees. A lot of them in psychology, some in social justice or social work, things like that. But they're also women of faith.
Yep.
And so they're able to bring both of those skill sets. They're people who absolutely feel called. We only hire people who say that they feel that they're called. We do understand that we're called to different things, and not everybody could do this. We
Okay.
get that.
Yep.
We also understand that sometimes people need more healing before they come to work for Created, because having a constant reminder of trauma would not be healthy for them. So we just watch out for all those things. We have a pretty good system in place to keep our staff healthy. One day a month, they get a day off uncreated just for rest and reflection. We pay for therapy so that they can get ongoing care to make sure that they're staying stable and in a good, healthy place. So, yeah, we're very intentional about the well-being of our own people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
so important. And the grant that came, you can't do
Yes.
any of this without
Yeah.
funding, because to bring the
Absolutely.
right people, to bring the right team, to bring the right expertise. And maybe before we go there, you mentioned that this is a recovery and healing center for women.
Yes.
And so are we talking 18 and up is
Yes.
created demographic that you're serving? It's adult women.
Correct.
How do they find their way to created? Like, how does
Yeah.
someone who has experienced this or is experiencing this say, I think you might be a place that I can find help and hope?
Yeah. So we have a lot of partners. We work with a lot of other agencies. We're not expertise in all things. We don't have the expertise. So we outsource drug treatment. We outsource a lot of mental health. They all have therapists on the outside of Created. We have a therapist on Created staff also. Um, so our partners are all aware of us. So if they encounter somebody, they will refer them to Created. But the majority of the people come through our outreach programs. So we have a drop-in center. We helped over 300 unique not duplicated, individuals last year through our drop-in center. So some of them come in that way. We have a jail class. Many people who are trafficked are in jail. They don't even know in many cases that they're there on trafficking charges because they're there for drug or other charges. So we teach a class in the jail. If they're counselors realize that they have been trafficked, they will send them to that class, and then we let them know, when you get out of jail, please come to Created, and we can help you get your life back, because they haven't gotten the treatment and the care that they needed before that. So, and a lot of word of mouth. Women tell other people. People on the street tell other people. There's a whole network, right, of people who are receiving assistance. How they tell other people what's available to them.
I'm Zach Elliott, Executive Director of VUVIVO, and we exist to express the life and beauty of the gospel in the world. Together with our partners, we are wondrously revealing Christianity and inviting people to know God personally. Our team accomplishes that work faithfully through art, literature, music, content, and immersive experiences. And right now, there's a tremendous opportunity to lead with beauty in holding out the hope of the gospel. And I want to invite you to partner with us in that important work. Go to vuvivo.com/support to partner with us to express the life and beauty of the gospel. That's when we say one home, how many
Mhm.
beds how many people does one home serve?
Yeah, it could serve 10 women.
Okay.
And then they expanded to, from the home that's not far from our main campus. Then we house some women on our main campus, like 4 women. And then we realized that we're on Nebraska Avenue. So that's not the best place to rehab people when it's their stomping ground. So we put a house in St. Pete. And then we found that we needed to have more places like St. Pete because we need to get more people out of Nebraska Avenue. Women that come out of state or that are not from Nebraska Avenue, we can house them there because they don't know people there. So it's okay for them. So then we got a house in Newport Richey. Now we have a house in Lutz. And let me see, Tampa, Newport Richey, St. Pete, right, and Lutz.
And
Yeah,
Lutz. 4
yeah,
homes.
yes.
All about 10 capacity. So what would you
No,
say
now,
is
so all the houses have 7.
okay,
The house in Tampa is larger.
got
Yeah,
it. Okay. I mean, you think about the number of people, and
yeah,
this is extraordinary. That's actually a massive
yeah,
operation to care for that many people in that
yeah.
many homes. Proportionate to the need. I mean, would you say that you're able to handle the need with 4 homes, or would you say we need 400 homes? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
how many do you think, from your view right now, in a city like Tampa,
Mhm.
just locate that between what's real for you today and where the need is?
So Tampa Bay is number 5 in the entire country for cases of human trafficking. Florida is number 3 in the entire country. The state told us that last year they had 10,300 cases of human trafficking or incidents of human trafficking. I'm not sure how they calculated that. There are 97 beds in Florida, and Created's 31 of them.
Okay.
So obviously, we're not meeting the need.
Yeah. Say
Yeah.
those numbers again. 10,000.
10,300 incidents of human trafficking, known incidents in Florida last year. There's 97 beds in the state of Florida, and Created has 31 of them.
Yeah, I just think,
So yeah, so the need
yeah,
is great.
the need is great.
If every woman that comes to our drop-in center, we see about 28 women a day. They now, of course, they come multiple times. If they said today I want to come into Created, we'd have to turn away 91% of them.
Okay. Thank you for saying it,
Yeah,
and thank you for listening.
yeah,
Part of what we want to do is just highlight, right, and keep having this conversation, because I think our team thinks that when we talk about the life and beauty of the gospel,
yeah,
like, is it possible to have healing? Is it possible to have life after what seems like
yeah.
death? We would say from a Christian perspective, yes,
Yes.
right? Like, God
Hmm.
calls things that are not as though they are. He's the God who heals and rescues and delivers. Like,
Yeah,
yes, 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 yes. And we feel like we need to get about that in
yeah,
culture.
yeah,
Like, there is a desperate need. And I think that when you look at the trafficking of persons
yeah.
and the dehumanizing tragedy of sexual violence and all of that, there is, if we talk about that, we just came out of the COVID pandemic and we're used to just numbers after numbers that
Hmm.
seem like
Hmm.
impossible numbers. And we can almost become immune to
Yeah.
that. But I think that it's good to hear 10,300 cases. And that's just what we are
Yeah.
reporting
What they
and
know. Yeah.
tracking. 97
Beds. Yeah.
beds, and 30 of them, 31 of them
Yeah. Are created.
are created. Okay, there's work to do. How do we get about it? 100 shares is a part of that,
Yeah.
right? Because it
Yeah.
takes resource to run a
Yeah.
home, to staff a home, all of this. 100 shares brought that grant, which is amazing. And I think what a beautiful example of
Yeah.
people bringing what
Absolutely.
they have. How are those dollars going to be stewarded? How is that grant particularly helping you scale? Is it helping you sustain those 4 homes? Are you adding services that you weren't able to add?
Yeah. So what we asked them for was for 2 vehicles, because we have to get between these homes, but also all the women that we serve, they have a lot of appointments. And so we're always driving. And the liability of that was falling on the staff because they were using personal vehicles. So I just feel that to protect the staff, we need to have official vehicles. So that's what we ask for. And then also the grant's going to help pay for, we have the most fabulous community engagement person. And what she is doing is working in the communities where we're serving, trying to find more people who can provide services for our women, but build those community partners, talk to more churches about how they can support us in our ministry, um, and then also workplaces. Our women have criminal histories. It's very hard for them to secure jobs, especially good jobs, safe jobs. And so she's working on that network for us. So it's very, very important to what we do. And the more women we get, the more resources we need, both community resources, but also dollars in order to take care of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible. This will be my plug for you to buy Freedom Roast from Buddy Brew every time. I mean, this is
Absolutely.
why
It's true.
we created this
Yeah.
initiative, and Christina Cruzy's our lab
Yeah.
initiative director. And the whole hope is, well, everybody buys coffee. We're all buying coffee. Not everybody, but everybody should buy coffee. We're all buying coffee. And we think you should buy Freedom Roast coffee because Dave and Susan at Buddy Brew said, okay, we're going to take $3 every time somebody buys a bag of that coffee. We're
Yeah.
going to take $3 and we're going to put it in the lab initiative, and 100% of that money, there's no fees or other dollars spent. 100% of that money just
Yeah.
passes through to places like Created, the work that is being done at Oak Rock, all these
Yeah.
wonderful organizations. So when you do the math and you go 10,300 beds are needed, imagine if 10,000 people bought 1 bag of coffee every month.
Yeah.
That's $30,000 a month of sustainable funding that we're
Hmm.
not having to go fundraise for.
Yeah.
It just gets to be turned on because we're drinking coffee and there's that consumer good, common good intersection. So thank you, Buddy Brew. Thank you, Dave and Susan. Thank you, 100
Absolutely. Yeah.
shares.
Thank you.
We'll circle back to how people can help, because I think there is a
Yeah.
direct need, not just for resource, but prayer and volunteering. But I want to ask you, just from your vantage point, you've now been here for a few years
Yeah.
in your role, and we have kind of a zoomed out perspective,
Yeah.
and we say we see the life and beauty of the gospel everywhere in
Yeah.
Created. I don't know if there's a place, like, it makes me want to tear up. Like, we see the life and beauty of the gospel springing up from Created
Yeah.
everywhere. As an executive director, when you walk out of there at night, and you get in your car to
Yeah.
drive home, where can you look back and go, I saw the life and beauty of the gospel in maybe just one or two of these areas where you go, that's God.
Yeah, a lot of ways. So the first one is we're on Nebraska Avenue, so there's unhoused people everywhere, and it seems so overwhelming. Like how can we get these people in permanent housing? And the situation is they have so much going on in their life that needs to be healed for them to sustain permanent housing. So at Created, the women are getting their lives back. By the time they leave Created, they have full time jobs, they have permanent housing, they have vehicles, they're getting their children back. And so we literally
Mm,
see life transformation. And so the people that other people are walking by saying, yeah, not much can really happen. We're just going to continue to feed them or have shelters or things like that. I'm saying there's another solution. That if they want care, that care is available, even for those that have not been trafficked. However, a lot of the people on the street have been trafficked. So that's the first thing. But if you could see the women when they come in, it is like so. This is how the women explain it. It's like being on a freight train. Your life is a freight train, and coming to create in that train suddenly stops and everything in their life collides and you just got this train wreck, you just got
mm,
this huge mess, everything is turned upside down, some things have to be discarded, and where do you start cleaning this up? That's what it feels like.
mm,
And so they come in and they are just in shock, they don't know what to do, they don't believe they can do this, and so you see this and you see this hardness, and then literally like 2 weeks later you see the same woman and she glows
mm,
just because a peace and a subtleness is taking place. And then you see them 6 months later and they've done their hair and they're dressing differently and they're talking about the classes that they've just passed. And so you're literally physically watching a transformation take place and you watch their beauty come back.
mm, mm,
It is such an amazing thing to watch.
mm.
Many of our women come in and they don't have teeth because of their drug addiction, and to watch the dentists that work with us. If you have any dentists out there who want to work with us, we're always looking for them. And they will give our women new teeth. And so now they have a smile again.
Mm,
And so it's not just an internal, you can literally see that
mm,
transformation taking
mm,
place. To see them now when we have our events, we call them Oasis, where the entire community comes together and we have dinner and churches come and host this for us. And their children come. And to see that reunification taking place, to see parents come who really had given up hope. And now they're there going, what can I do to help you?
yeah.
So just to watch, literally, it is beauty
Mm,
of God's healing. And I think sometimes we don't get the privilege of seeing that,
yeah.
but we get to see that
We
every
get to see
day
it. Yeah.
too. Yeah,
I
it's
love that
amazing.
you described that with just in the lives of people. And
Yeah,
you said that they get their lives back.
yeah,
You think about what the locusts have eaten, what's been stolen. Like God's going to heal you and restore you. You're
yeah,
going to get your life back.
yeah,
And there's going to be beauty where there was tragedy, right? And brokenness. And that beauty is going to come back. Your life is coming back, and your
yeah,
beauty as a human person
yeah.
is coming back.
Absolutely,
That's the work.
it
And
is.
yeah,
And it's God's work, for the church. The church is so valuable. So today, 81% of people that are trafficked in America, it's familial trafficking, or significant other, boyfriend who groomed them or whatever the case may be. So they can never go back to the community they came from, nor do they want to, right?
yeah,
But it's not safe for them.
yeah,
So we have to help them build another community. And this is where the church comes in too. Our women go to church, they go to groups at churches. The churches come into our house to do Bible study. And that becomes their new network, that becomes their new family. Right. But those people are helping to breathe life and hope into the women. But I also think that as they watch the women grow, that life and encouragement is going the other direction also,
yeah.
right? To really see the transforming work of Jesus Christ. The other thing is if our women have dual diagnosis. So just in a regular drug treatment program, the success rate is like 40% because just the definition of addiction is it's a chronic relapsing condition, right? Currently, in this last year, we have seen 89% of our graduates don't return to the life or addiction.
Wow.
That's graduates. Now, if I count all the women, including the women that come to assessment house, and some of them are only there short term because they go on to another program because we're not the right fit for them. They need something else besides created. 81%,
That's incredible. Yeah.
right? That is
Praise
supernatural. We
God.
know,
Yep.
we know, we know. We don't take credit for that.
Yep.
That is a Jesus thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm emotional talking about it because I know it's a Jesus thing.
Yeah.
I also know that having our needs met, it's primarily the Christian community that is making that happen. In some organizations, even created a couple years ago, all of our religious activities happened on the main campus, all the classes, all the Bible studies. But because we have houses now in 3 different counties, that work has to happen in the houses. Now, number one, I love that because the presence of God is forever in the houses and it's being brought in all the time. But it does mean some of the funding, big dollar funding, we don't qualify for because we can't separate the faith aspect from the
Yes, you do.
residential,
Yep.
right? And so we can't even go after some of the housing dollars because of the faith component.
Yeah.
But the faith community, because it's so important to them, they're continuing to support that.
Yeah.
And so as a result, we have the redemption of lives.
Yeah.
And so we need the faith community to help with that. But we also need the faith community. One of the things I loved about 100 Shares, actually my favorite part, even over the money, to believe it or not, the second time I went to present, I was there early, and there were people already in the parking lot. And this woman came up to me, she's crying, and other people are following her. They're coming over to talk to me. And she just said, we're just so grateful that somebody's doing this, right? And we're grateful that lives are changing, and we're praying for you. And I just start crying
Yeah.
to know that in all these presentations, all these people are praying because that's where the work takes place. We're doing spiritual warfare every single day. Satan wants to stop that because he doesn't want people to get their lives back.
Yep.
And those prayers are sustaining us. They're keeping us encouraged. To know that there's this army behind us is just,
Yeah.
you can't even describe that.
Yeah.
Right?
It's incredible. And I think that community, the 100 Shares community, we experience the same thing. Just some of the most extraordinary people and committed to excellence and deeply devoted to prayer. And I mean, it's awesome. Would you say that, how are we doing as far as like the church, organized church, participating in the mission of Created? Would you say we're 90% of the way there? Most of the churches in Tampa Bay are in some way, shape, or form helping in funding and partnering with Created, or is there work to do?
There's more work. We have a handful of churches that are highly involved with Created, and we're incredibly grateful. They sponsor events for us. They bring gifts to the women. They do our Bible studies, those kind of things. I hope that I can take the pressure off of people. Sometimes we don't serve because we're afraid. We don't know what to do.
Sure.
Just the gift of presence, right? But use the talents that you have. We were talking about art earlier. The number of artists that we have come in that do art with our women, especially when they first come in and they can't express themselves, to have them do some kind of craft, to have them write a poem, to have them, walk on the beach and collect shells. So you don't have to be a tremendous Bible study leader or fabulous at praying or any of that. It's the gift of presence that somebody sees and cares.
That's right.
Because they've been out there where nobody sees or cares. You're right. And so, take whatever God has given you and just make it available.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And I will add my strong encouragement to the churches, like organized church.
Yeah.
In our city, I think one of the most powerful things we could do is see like a complete mobilization, 100% unity around an issue that we can all agree on and say we can all actively participate. And even if it's a $10 a month line item and our church commits to pray, great. But wouldn't that be amazing if every single church in Tampa Bay Created was on our mind and in our heart to pray for, and it was reflected in our budget? And so if you could just audit the books of every church in Tampa Bay and you found justice is in
Yeah.
there and created as a part of that, I think
Yeah.
that'd be amazing. So that's my own plug.
Yeah, I
There
love
you
it.
go.
I love
Yeah.
it. I think the other thing too is how we end human trafficking, right? Is to reduce, uh, uh,
Demand.
yeah, demand, right? And so just going to the churches and educating people on what that looks like, right? But also just educating the church because everywhere I go, people that come to talk to me about their own abuse and that they have not been able to get help, even though they've gotten care, they haven't gotten help.
Yep.
And so, how can we help you get help? And what role does the church play in there? I have a whole thing in my head that I want to someday present to the churches of this is how we can help our own people heal.
Come on.
Sometimes all of our outreach is that outreach, the people outside of our doors, but inside our own doors, people are suffering in silence because they're ashamed to tell the person next to them, I am not okay today.
Yep. Yep.
And so just us doing in reach,
Yeah.
I think, within our own churches and making sure that they are healed. Because in our case, I believe that people, I believe in the wounded healer, but I also know that in our case, if people don't come to us healed, that will negatively impact the recovery of our women, right? But I want people who are struggling, and I know there are people who have been going to counseling for 20 years and they're still having nightmares. Reach out to Created. We can tell you where the help is. We can tell you the new science that makes help more readily available. We will surround you with people of prayer. And I have to say, though, I think that prayer often is the catalyst. It breaks down barriers. It breaks down those things in our soul that we just can't break down on our own.
Yeah.
But also, truly, the gift of presence. Knowing that somebody is sitting alongside me in my suffering and I'm not alone is tremendously healing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and part of that, I think, thank you for bringing up the inner work for the church because
Yeah.
it's hard to even have these conversations or share a podcast like this because
Yeah.
we go, if you really knew me, you would
Yeah.
know that I was
Yeah.
sexually abused. If you really knew me, that you would know that this was in my family or this was in my
Yeah.
story. And so we don't know how to make sense of that. And I think that it's helpful for us to just say, hey, let's take the shame away from that
Absolutely.
and the fear away from that. And the church can be the safest place to not say it doesn't exist here, but say, no, it 100% exists here because we're
Yes.
all suffering so much brokenness, but we can talk about it here. And I
Absolutely.
won't walk around with a somehow being
Scarlet letter.
shamed, a scarlet letter.
Right.
So yeah, so much. We could just keep
Yeah,
talking. I
absolutely.
could
We
keep you
could.
here all day. I want to end with this. We lead with beauty, and I love the life and beauty of the gospel
Yeah.
springing up at Created. Last December, we unveiled this piece of Mary Overshadowed.
Yeah.
Tremendous piece from Emily Pastor, and she painted Mary standing really triumphantly
Yeah.
above the horizon, looking out. And we asked Emily to paint her with a look that she knew something was coming that maybe the viewer didn't know, and that it would
Yeah.
bring hope. And so she
Yeah.
captured Mary knowing that God was going to heal and restore everything and make everything new, right?
Yeah.
And that was in her body and in her bones. She had said, may it be, and that God
Mhm.
was going to be faithful to it. She captured that. So we would like to gift you one of
I'd be
Emily's
honored.
signed prints
Yeah.
to hang and to put into your homes, and
Yeah.
we want to just in every way we can cheer on the work you're doing.
Thank
So
you.
Christina Cruzy is going to reach out from the lab
Yeah.
initiative so that we can help bring funding and financial resource, our artists, our art, anything that we can do in our advocacy. If you're listening to this podcast, I would just say go to Created's website, educate yourself on what's being done here in our city and the tremendous need, and just join us in prayer. Like everybody,
Absolutely.
add Created to the list to pray for.
Yeah.
Pray. Second, I would say go get educated to Created as an organization. And then third, pray about responding in some small way. So
Yeah.
to bring it to a close, if you could ask people who are now like, oh wow, I had never heard of Created, or I knew of Created, but I didn't quite
Yeah.
know how to help. How can people right now, what are some of the ways that you're praying about and your team are praying about, hey, we could most use this? What would those things be?
So if we want to open more homes, we need financial support. And I want to. So last year we were not able to have our benefit, which is our big fundraiser. It's about half of our budget because we had 2 hurricanes, and so it wiped us out. What sustained us were the monthly gifts, the
Yep.
monthly $25, $50 gifts, because we just had enough of them, right, that they were able to carry us through. So you don't have to be a major donor.
Yep.
Deny yourself a cup of coffee a day and give that money to help women get their lives back. But besides that, we're always looking for toiletries. We go through a lot of toiletries. We go through a lot of linen, towel sheets, pillows, those kind of things. We're always looking for underwear, socks, shoes in particular,
Okay.
and smaller size clothing. The women that come into the drop-in center, most of them are malnourished. They're very tiny.
Yeah.
So we're always looking for clothes for them also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can people find the right way to help and connect those
Yeah.
resources to you just by going to the website?
Sure. Createdwomen.com.
Okay.
If you want to email us, info@createdwomen.com.
Okay. Thank you for that. And if
Absolutely.
you think about your world, whether it's sheets, blankets,
Yeah.
shoes, whatever it is, or if you're a dentist, a doctor,
Absolutely.
an artist, I just encourage you to, we always say, bring what you have. And
Yes.
who knows? God's always ahead of the need, right? Whether it's
Yes.
vans or art or whatever it
Yeah.
is, God's going to supply every need. Lurlene, thank you for,
Thank you.
yeah, just who you are and what you're doing. We're
Thank you.
grateful that God called you to our city, and we'll be praying for you. But I had the benefit of the honor of talking to a former NFL player. And as I was talking to him, I was just looking at him and I was like, man, to get to the level of expertise to do that job is insane. Like such a tiny percentage
Yeah.
of people have what it takes to like get to that level and do that job. And I feel like that talking to you, that like
You're kind. Thank
40
you.
years of experience, like the expertise that you bring into this space, the heart for God, the love for God, all of those things, like you can't make it up. Only God can
Thank
make
you.
and fashion somebody to do that work. And it's pretty cool. So thanks for
Thank
hanging out.
you. God bless you. Thank you.
Yeah.